Hi, hey, hello, how's it going? My name's Luke and you're watching Gnarly Marmalade Media. And today we've got a very special interview with Mr. Will Bates, composer extraordinaire, 73 compositions according to IMDb. How's it going, Will?
Good. How you doing? Thanks for having
Yeah,
me.
very good, very good. Lovely to have you here. Um, I wanted to start off this interview with kind of one of the bigger questions we can ask, and that is, what is the best score of all time and why?
Blimey, that is a big one. I mean, I could probably spend the rest of this interview answering that question, but I'll try and keep it brief. I guess the first record I ever bought was Ennio Morricone's score to The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. It
Mhm.
sounds like such a cliche now, but I mean, like,
World
to
famous.
yeah, and like God, I mean, he sort of invented a language, didn't he, when he did that one? So I would say that Blade Runner and
Yeah.
Vertigo. I'm gonna go with those three.
Nice
If
selection.
that's
And the first record you bought, full stop, was a soundtrack.
yeah, was a soundtrack. Yeah,
Mm.
I guess I've sort of always been kind of fascinated by movie scores ever since I was little. I sang the whole score of Star Wars to my parents when I was about 6 years old, and they were like, "All right, hang on a minute," and they went out and bought me a violin that I
Yeah. Well, was that your
tortured.
first instrument?
It was, yeah, which was a bit of a mistake, to be honest. I
Mhm.
kind of hated it, and there's a massive learning curve with the violin. You don't
Yeah.
really, it takes a long time to make it sound good. I'm not sure that I ever succeeded in making it sound good, to be totally
Are you
honest.
still playing the violin to this day, or?
No,
Oh, it's one
no. I
good
am
job.
so when I was 11, I shifted to the sax, and that was much
Mhm.
more instant for me, and I sort of fell in love with it, and I got very good very quickly, and that was kind of my instrument.
I mean, so what sort of music were you growing up on? Was it more jazz stuff when you got into the sax,
I
or
mean, I
kind of?
guess it was. Yeah, I thought I was going to be Cannonball Adderley until I was about 19. So yeah, I listened to a lot of jazz, but movie scores were really the thing that I would like run out and like buy a film soundtrack on a cassette. That would be the thing that I just sort of really gravitated towards. But
Mhm.
then I got into my late teens, early 20s and got into techno and writing house music and a lot of dance stuff. And then was the lead singer of an indie band in my 20s in New York. And
Mhm.
then, but always in the background, the way that the only way I guess I knew how to make a living was scoring to picture. So that's just sort of something that's always been there.
Lovely. I mean, no. So when you're going out and buying these soundtracks, you seeing the film first, or are you blind buying, just like
Yeah,
composers you
I
know, or?
guess I guess so. Yeah, it would always be. I mean, I remember like going out and buying the score to RoboCop or like to Frantic or just sort of like
Oh,
anything
lovely.
like
Yeah,
Lawrence of
yeah.
Arabia, just like anything that I happened to have watched as a kid. Yeah, and getting kind of geeky about it. I think when I was little, when I realized that some of those scores that I'd grown up with were all written by one person, when I realized who John Williams was, it was like,
Yeah.
hang on a minute, how's that even possible? He wrote all those melodies, and that was like a sort of mind-blowing discovery. And I guess that kind of really led me to wanting to do this.
I mean, so when you go about your soundtracking process, is there a kind of certain genre you like to lean towards with it? I mean, you're throwing out a lot of orchestral scores there. Is that kind of your preferred angle with it, or do you kind of not care too
It's
much?
kind of,
Obviously, it's based on the
yeah,
film, but
I guess I'm fortunate enough to be able to move around a lot. I feel like I feel very grateful that every project is so different with what I do. And I think that's kind of moving into my career. That's kind of what I seem to gravitate towards. I like everything to be different. I get kind of inspired by change, I guess.
mm,
Um, but I think probably maybe like the most sort of life-changing score for me was probably the score to Blade Runner. Like that one made me want to go out and buy synths and stuff and
mhm.
like really understand kind of electronic scoring. So yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
I I, I wouldn't say that I gravitate specifically to one genre. I think I like it to be as different as possible.
yeah. I mean, speaking of synths, is that a modular you got in the back there?
It's one of them. Yeah.
Lovely. One of
I,
them.
yeah.
Oh
Oh
my
man.
gosh, I wanted to get into modular for so long, but it's such a kind of beast of a thing to
It is a
start.
beast. and it's like it's very dangerous. Like I bought that because I was doing a show called The Path, and I discovered this instrument called the ondes martinet, where you can like, it's like an old 1920s French synth. Basically, you put a little ring on your finger and you slide up and down a keyboard. It's kind of like a very precise theremin. Your
Okay,
left
yeah,
hand
yeah,
is
that makes sense.
velocity and your right hand is pitch. And there's this company based out of Cornwall that rebuilt them. They're called the French Connection, and I bought one of those, and I went into the shop to just buy that thing, and I'm like, oh, I just want one oscillator, one filter, and the French Connection. And the guy was like, yeah, I'll see you next week, and he was like,
And
literally,
here
like
is the
it's like
lifelong addiction. Wow. I
it
mean,
is a
do you
bit, yeah.
what instruments do you feel most comfortable composing on? Or is that kind of a stupid question for someone who's done
No,
73
not at all.
different?
I mean, I feel like everything always begins with me behind the piano, honestly.
Yeah.
I'm not really I wouldn't say that that's like my main instrument at all, but it just kind of, everything is born out of some sort of eureka
Yeah.
moment, I always call it, like where I have to sort of stumble on a chord sequence or a melody that is kind of unique to a character or a situation. And the journey to getting that eureka moment is like it's like most of the job for me
Okay.
sometimes. So yeah, I feel like composing normally begins with me like pounding away at a piano,
Uh,
even if it's not a piano score. It's just sort of,
Yeah, yeah. It's nice,
yeah,
like a solid instrument. It's like guitar, I guess is probably my
yeah, I
opinion of
guess
it.
so.
It's like
Exactly. I'm no
there are
guitarist,
so
so
many genre ways with that. And
yeah,
so
exactly.
speaking on your process a bit there, what point do you like to
Yeah.
come in? Are you kind of just after the script's kind of finalized when it's all on paper, or kind of in the pre-production, or even when they've started filming a bit? At what point do you feel that you're familiar enough with the characters and the story to kind of really get a grasp on what that sounds like to you? And or like, I mean, I guess is it
That's a great
directed to a
question.
director or?
You know, it really varies. I feel like I've done every version of that. You know, like I'll come in super early after reading the script, or I'll like come in right at the end. Sometimes, I hate to say it, sometimes I'm replacing someone, and you know, it's like, just that's how this game
Mhm.
works. Yeah, shock horror. um you know, I think generally what seems to happen is that if I've not met the director before, if this is like the beginning of a working relationship, I tend to sort of come in later once picture is locked. And like with the estate, I'd never
Yeah.
worked with Dean before. He's got a fantastic music editor called Johnny, sorry, music supervisor called Johnny Gilbert, and they've worked together a lot, and they kind of like went through temp score and like really figured out what the tone they were looking for,
Right.
and
So you
then I
had a
kind of
really good
came
thing
on
to work
later.
off there. Yeah.
Totally. And similarly, the movie that I did before that a couple of years ago called The Voyeurs, with a guy called Mike Mohan, same sort of thing. Like we didn't really know each other. I came in towards the end, but now I'm doing another thing with him, and like now we know each other and we've sort of had that experience. I'm
Mhm.
getting involved much earlier on in the process. So there's another director I work with all the time called Mike Cahill, and with his movies I tend to sort of, you know, he'll show me the script or even the treatment, and we'll go out and have beers and like talk about
Yeah.
tone for 5 hours. You know, like it's
That's I mean, so
it
and what
really
does
it,
that
it really varies.
yeah. I mean, so what does that conversation look like when you're there with the director with their script at whatever point? What does it look like? Are they you discussing just tone? Is it kind of specific? I mean, I mean, a lot of my favorite scores have specific like motifs for different characters. I mean, the Moonlight score comes to mind where you've got
Sure.
all the different kind of
Yeah,
motifs that
lovely.
develop and things. So yeah, I mean, what does that conversation look like when you get there?
I think it's much more abstract than that. Those early conversations are kind of, you know, sometimes a director will have a quite a specific idea in his or her mind about what they, you know, maybe they've been like writing the script with a piece of music playing in the background. You know, it could be as simple
Right.
as that. Sometimes there is an idea like, I think it should be kind of electronic, or I think it should be this, and that's where I can sort of be a bit more specific and kind of start those conversations. In terms of like themes and stuff like that, I mean, that tends to be something that I do quietly on my own, you know.
Right. Okay.
But there will be, I love this score. I love the way that, you know, Vertigo has this theme that then you hear in different contexts, and can we do something like that? And you know, that's, yeah, sometimes it can be that specific.
Lovely. I mean, so you've done TV shows, you've done movies, you've done non-fiction, you've done fiction. how does your process vary kind of format to format there? I mean, obviously a TV show, that's maybe 10 hours of content upwards potentially, whilst a movie 2 hours,
Yeah,
like non-fiction, maybe there's a lot less music. I mean, well, yeah, how does that work for you?
I feel like it again. It all kind of starts in the same way with like whether or not it's a doc or a TV show or a movie. I tend to sort of always have that bit at the beginning where I'm like finding the eureka moment, finding the sound or like the melody that's like totally unique to the project. And then I think it just sort of then you get into just the nitty gritty of scale. You know, like a TV show is so much bigger. And like what I love about television is I love melody and theme, and you know I love that process of sort of getting getting the cut and then kind of looking at the episode and thinking like, okay, well, what if I take her melody and now she's with that character and I can turn that upside down and do this, and like, you know, it
Right.
turns into sort of a math problem. And that's normally like once I've gone through the first few episodes and we've like established themes and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So that is much more, you can get much more detailed and like kind of sort of pattern out the breadcrumbs in the first few episodes of what this theme is going to turn into in a way that you can't really do with a movie. It's sort of a
Yeah.
different, slightly different mindset, you know. I feel like you can be a bit more like subliminal with a lot of those choices with television. And yeah, similarly with docs, like I just sort of I work a lot with Alex Gibney, and his movies are they're very cinematic and thematic, and he sort of taught me that idea that like it doesn't matter if it's a documentary, you have to kind of find the melody for this character and like, you know,
Yeah.
figure it out and take a sledgehammer to it and throw it out of context and all that stuff. So yeah,
Totally.
it varies.
I mean, and how do you find your own inspirations kind of coming up during all of this? Are you consuming a lot of other media? I mean, it just soundtracks, or do you kind of find books help at all? Or, I mean, obviously films, like what albums are you listening to when you kind of get this down? Is there stuff you go
Yeah,
back to get inspiration?
you know, it's funny. I feel like I listen to music constantly, but I wouldn't say that I find my inspiration from it. It's just sort of something that's always there. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like we put a record on I have two kids and we have a vinyl set up, and I'm always like throwing jazz on in the morning, and then it sort of like transitions to something more modern, like throughout the
Mhm.
day. That's when they're home from school and stuff. I feel like for every project, I have to find like an instrument or a new piece of gear that's like something that excites me.
Right.
Sometimes that involves like going and buying some new instrument and trying to figure out how to play it in my own way. You know, we have a little area at Fall on Your Sword that we call the orphanage. It's like this room in the back where like all the instruments kind of go to die once I'm like done like using them for a
Wow.
project. Sort of looks like that room at the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark with all the boxes piled up. It's kind of like
Yeah.
that's part of it for me. I feel like that's the thing with composers. We're always searching for like that unique sound. So that's, you know, sometimes like my melodies and my choices are sort of born out of those sonic choices that I find that I stumble on.
Have you got any favorite instruments you've discovered through that process?
Um, yeah, there's that weird thing that I've got recently that's kind of like it's called the Soma Divina. I don't know if you can see that. It's like a string instrument. It's kind of like a
Wow.
lyra that you plug into an amp. It's got two sympathetic strings. Um, I don't know, man. Like it's endless. I'm just pointing to that because it's right behind me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean,
But you know, as a sax player, I play a lot of woodwinds as well, and I find myself sort of, you know, um, sort of gravitating towards things that I know how to play before like experimenting with the stuff that I don't.
yeah. What you listening to at the moment was like favorite album of the year so far? Like, yeah, any genre fixations or anything?
Um, let's see. The new The Smile, I'm into that right now.
Mm-hmm,
Um,
mm-hmm. Great record.
it's a great record. It's funny, I listened to it the first time and said, I'm not sure I'm going to get into this. And then the more I listen to it, the more I love it. And I knew Tom a little bit, Tom Skinner, the drummer, um, when I was a kid, like he from like London jazz.
Wow.
stuff.
Jazz
And
powerhouse, one of the best drummers out right now.
yeah, amazing. He grew up with a mate of mine called Quentin Collins, who's a trumpet player. So I was sort of like able to observe them from the
Hmm.
side, let's say. So yeah, God, he's just what a phenomenal musician. Um, but yeah, and I feel like that informed my life a lot as well, like my sort of London jazz thing,
Hmm.
like that was a sort of defining thing for me, I think.
I mean, were you playing in many jazz bands growing up, or I mean, were you ever in
Well,
kind of more
yeah,
rocky stuff?
me
Obviously,
and
you're in the post-punk stuff later.
right, me and Quentin, we lived together in Harlesden straight out of college, and we thought we were going to be like Bird and Dizzy, like he's a trumpet
Yeah,
player, sax player. He carried on doing what he does, and now he's playing with Kyle Eastwood and Basement Jacks and all sorts of amazing people. I discovered like I'm getting my kicks out of writing. This is sort of not really my path, so
yeah.
our paths kind of diverge. But yeah, I played a lot. Like he and I were on Lulu's game show that she had for a minute during the national lottery in like the
Oh
late
wow.
90s. We got sacked actually for being out of tune. But yeah, we were like the horn section for a BBC One prime time show that was kind of an amazing
That's
experience.
awesome. I mean, but obviously, you still done some session work in your time, right? So you play
Yeah,
with Roy Ayers, right?
yeah,
How was
yeah.
that?
That was amazing. It was amazing. Yeah, we did a tune with him called Riding High, me and Quentin actually. Um, yeah, and we spent the day with Roy in the studio. It was like an incredible experience.
Wow. I mean,
Yeah.
and you've done quite a few collaborations, obviously. I saw on your Instagram you saw the guys from Mochiba the other day. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, what's it like? Are there any kind of dream collaborations, and how do you find collaborating? Because obviously you're kind of the composer for whatever film you do or whatever like piece. Kind of, do you enjoy the collaborative aspect, or yeah?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, especially, with the thing with Sky, I had her come in and sing on a song that I wrote for a movie called Bliss a couple of years ago. But I've known her for years, and we've like done bits and pieces together over the years. She's just phenomenal. And I feel like, you especially when you're scoring a movie, you kind of become like an expert in the film, you know what I mean? Like
Mm,
you as a director tend to sort of like know where all the bodies are buried, like I could tell you everything about a certain character and his or her journey. Um, and having someone new come in to sort of reinterpret your ideas like that, it's incredible. So like
mm.
with Sky, she just sort of came in and sang this song in her own special way, but also somehow like illuminated something new that I didn't expect.
Yeah.
And that also happened. I wrote a song for the main titles for a show called The Devil in Ohio with Bishop Briggs that's out right now. And same thing, like we wrote the song together, and she's sort of somehow like figured out something new about the main character of that show. So yeah, I love that. I love like becoming like this sort of weird sort of sole expert on something, and then have
Yeah.
someone with their like talent and gifts come in and just sort of like illuminate something else that I wouldn't have thought of. So
When you feel yourself becoming that expert, is that, I mean, how many watches deep are you into that film or that series or?
it's endless. I feel like you like become the expert, and then as soon as the job is done, I'm like, it's like left my brain, and
Yeah.
I'm like, the next one. It's funny, like you just sort of, I guess that kind of goes back to those conversations that you have with your director or your showrunner. You sort of like, music is so abstract and weird that you find
Mhm.
yourself like talking in these very like strange ways with people that I think kind of forces you to sort of think in an abstract sense. So yeah.
Mm. I mean, and so with a film, you've got maybe okay 2 hours of like visual content, and in there maybe you've got 45 minutes of scored content. How much content gets cut in the whole process? Are you making like 10 hours plus? Like, what's the sort of amount you're making for this film before it goes out?
It's probably, I mean, I tend to like write a lot at the beginning, like sketches, and sometimes it's responding to a certain scene or a character. Sometimes it's something much more general. So I feel like those sketches can be like massive. Like they can just go on for hours, you know, like I'll just like sit and kind of
Just
jam on
improv and stuff.
for
Yeah.
ages. And you know, stuff gets used all the time, especially in TV. Like I'll go back to those early sessions and kind of use them as some sort of template for something, especially if I'm getting a bit stuck. Like I'll go back to the sketches and, you know, find some sound that will kind of inspire me to do something else. But I feel like everything ends up getting used in some form or other. Sometimes I'll find myself going down a path and I'm like told to, no, wrong, you know. Like with
Really?
the estate, it was the saxes actually. Like I put a fantastic rhythm section together, a jazz trio basically, and I was playing on it, and every time I added horns, Dean would just be like, yeah, your rhythm section's really
Yeah, the
killing.
room session's sick, man. But
Yeah, let's maybe like peel off all those layers. And he's right,
yeah.
it's a comedy, so it sort of didn't need all the kind of intricate layers that I tend to sort of do as
Yeah.
my, you know,
Do
my
you
sort
struggle with that? Do you find yourself kind of running away with ideas and putting
I
so much in? And
sometimes, yeah, I have to be told less is more, you know. I tend to sort of throw more than I need at things. Um, which is, you know, I think is a good problem to have, like
yeah,
to
for
have
sure, for sure.
more than too little. So yeah.
Have you managed to get to any film festivals this year or been to the cinema that much?
I really haven't, not yet.
Really?
Oh, yeah, I just watched The Northman, which I
Yeah,
watched. I hate to admit it, I watched it in my house, which I just thought was phenomenal.
yeah.
Love
That fight
it.
scene at the end.
Oh my
Spoiler
god,
alert, but the
what
volcano fight scene is amazing.
mental? Yeah, move over, Phantom Menace.
Mhm,
Got another.
mhm. Not even close. It's just yeah,
Uh,
that film actually blew my socks off. I think just some of the fight scenes in there are lovely. Anya Taylor
oh,
Joy so good. Bjork is a witch. Oh my gosh,
oh, it's so
perfect.
good. She's
So good.
amazing. Yeah,
Amazing
no,
stuff.
great. It's a great movie. But yeah, I wish I went to the movies more. Like I said, I have two kids, so it's sort of like
Yeah,
we actually hadn't gone to the movies in what, like 2 years, I guess.
yeah.
And my kids had never been to the movies before, you know, like
Oh, how old are they?
5 and 7. Yeah,
Okay.
it's 5 and 7. So they sort of, you know, like the pandemic happened and like lots of things got kind of delayed. My wife and I took them to see Sing 2. Have you seen that movie?
I haven't seen Sing 2, no.
Yeah, why would you? We sat, I mean, literally, it's like the first time we sat in a movie theater with the lights going down
Yeah.
in years. And I just sobbed all the way through
Oh,
the movie. I mean, it's like, it's
yeah.
quite an emotional film anyway. I'm
Yeah,
looking over
yeah.
at my wife and she's also just sobbing. I think it was like a combination of like this very sort of saccharine story with like, we're back in the theater. This is
Yeah, I felt exactly the same my first time back. I think I must have been seeing some sort of Marvel film, no idea which
right.
one, but
Totally.
like just sat there and just felt everything goes down. It feels kind of it felt really surreal to be honest. It was
Yeah,
it's like
same.
2 years. It's not that long, but I don't know. Just something. If I felt kind of home again, nice and warm feeling. You get so
Yeah, exactly.
excited.
We've all been through so much and here
Mm.
we are. Yeah, totally.
I mean, so bringing up two kids, as I assume you're a film buff yourself, what is the film education looking like for the kids right now? What are the pinnacle of kids' films you're showing them?
I
What are they
mean,
on to now?
they're sort of Indiana Jones level at this
Okay.
point. We did Jason and the Argonauts the other day, and just talked the entire way through it, trying to explain like Greek mythology to my
Right.
7-year-old. But yeah, it's funny. Like you know, my parents were both Hammer horror actors, so I
Really?
was like sort of thrown into that world really early on. You know, I like watched my
Mm.
parents die in every way you can
Yeah.
imagine.
What sort
I
of
feel
stuff
like
were they getting to do? Monsters or like
no,
what sort of
it's like Hammer, like Christopher Lee stuff. My
right?
father,
Yeah.
like that right there is Taste the Blood of Dracula. When my dad turned into Christopher Lee, but he was in the horror of Frankenstein. And my parents met on a movie called Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde, where my father turned into a woman and went on killing sprees, murdering prostitutes. My mother played a prostitute, and that's how they met and fell in love. So
Beautiful.
yeah,
Beautiful.
exactly. But all that to say, I feel like I was kind of somewhat not desensitized, but I understood the fantasy element of horror and violence on screen and stuff like that in a way that I'm not sure that my kids have grasped
Yeah.
yet. So we're quite cautious, maybe a little bit too cautious about giving them nightmares too soon.
Yeah. I mean, kids get
Um,
nightmares about the weirdest things though. I watched The Cat in the
totally.
Hat when I was young, and that's just scary. And like Mike Myers jumping out of a wardrobe. Ooh, not good. But
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. I mean, my kids will like they'll come in later today and they'll see what I'm working on and they'll get freaked out, and I'm like, it's just I'm writing the music for it. It's not real.
Mm,
Um, I'm on a show right now called The Mayfair Witches, and unfortunately they keep walking in right at the like wrong moment. It's just sort of something terrifying happening on
no.
screen. um, but yeah, I guess I tried to get them to watch The Goonies the other day. It's just like I didn't grab them for some reason.
Really?
It's
Oh.
weird. Yeah, it's like I don't know. Like to me, that's just like the ultimate kids
That's the
film.
best kids movie
It's
ever.
the best kids
Maybe
film.
E.T. and that, I think. I don't know if it gets much
Right.
better.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, for whatever reason, I really want them to watch Jaws, but they'll never go and see again.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah. Okay.
um,
So I've got a bit of an off-piste one, and don't worry if it's a bit too hard, maybe. But if you had the Taxi Driver and you were asked to rescore it, but only with kind of contemporary and pop sort of influences there, maybe with other people's songs, maybe not, like kind of half and half, how would you go about getting like a classic like that and doing the Will Bates makeover job to it?
to a Taxi Driver,
Maybe
I
it's
would,
Taxi. I was thinking Godfather or anything like kind of the pinnacle of film sort of thing.
yeah,
Vertigo,
right.
maybe, if you fancy.
I guess I mean it would be impossible not to be influenced by Herman. He's like a hero. But God, yeah, I don't know. That is a really tough question. I guess it kind of goes back to finding that sound. I'm like constantly tinkering with finding loops and stuff like that, things that I like to throw chords on and throw them out of context. And I feel like in a weird way, that's also how he tended to write a bit as well. Like always hear those like amazing inversions that he does with his chords and
Mm,
got some sort of like simple melody that's happening. I feel like I would probably start there, and then
yeah,
see what would happen as a result.
lovely. Good. Okay, and my finishing straight is a bit of a quick fire round of like yes or no's, like this or that.
Okay,
Okay,
great.
so I've got a bigger, well, not that big a list, but we'll just bang through them. Okay, we've got pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
Yes,
Yes,
absolutely.
okay. Baritone or tenor?
Baritone.
Acoustic or electric guitar?
Uh, acoustic. Yeah, acoustic.
And Star Wars or Star Trek?
Oh shit, that's hard.
Because I know you're a Star Trek fan because of the
Yeah,
Fall
you
on Your
probably
Sword.
do,
Which
don't
actually, no, let's talk about that. How did that happen? What went through your head to make the Fall on Your Sword Captain Kirk video?
you? Which one? The
The
Climb
the
Mountain one?
the on the mountain.
I
Yeah.
think we had just watched Star Trek 5 and I ended up like going through the DVD extras and stumbled on that interview and was just like, wait, is he
What's this
really saying
going
that?
on?
This needs to be set to music. This is amazing.
Mm,
Um, yeah, I and then put it out and then we just ended up getting like invited to sci-fi conferences and
really?
put a band together to perform it live and the rest is history. Um,
And how
yeah,
did you decide on that like synth pop instrumental for it? Because it just fits so well.
I don't know, just it was something at the time that just seemed like that's what I was into, so it just kind of
Yeah,
worked. Yeah, but
wicked.
we used to do like these quite elaborate stage shows with the visual behind us, and we play at film festivals and stuff like that.
That's so fun. That is, yeah, it's still one of my favorite videos. It's
That's
lovely.
great. Thank you.
Um, okay, on with the quick fires. We've got tea or coffee,
Coffee,
Miles Davis or John Coltrane,
Miles,
summer or winter,
Summer,
Kiss, Marry, Kill, Kanye West, Quentin Tarantino, Britney Spears.
uh, Kill Kanye, marry
Correct.
Quentin, kiss Britney, I guess.
Yeah, lovely.
Yeah,
Hans Zimmer or Ennio Morricone,
Ennio Morricone,
KFC or McDonald's,
KFC,
Bebop or fusion?
Bebop.
Tarantino or Scorsese?
Scorsese.
And marmalade or jam?
Marmalade.
Correct. Thank you so much, Phil. This has been really lovely.
It's great to chat.